Okay, my friends, we are going to start with the Shavuot celebration. Once again, to our members who join us, Bruchim Abayim, you are very welcome. To our brothers and sisters from the Interfaith Caravan, once again, thank you for being with us. And for our members who are home, welcome too. If you don't know, we just finished the Interfaith Caravan here in our temple. We share some meal, some food, and then now we are going to start our celebration. I would like to welcome Rabbi Hillel Cohn, Baruch Haba, Kevod Rav, with the respect of our Rabbi Hillel Cohn. We are going to start. I would like to invite you to take a book, a prayer book, to follow the service. We are going to start on page 384. Page 384, we are going to start with the candle lighting, special blessing for Shavuot. As I mentioned, now for our friends and brothers, sisters from the Interfaith, you will see Judaism in practice. What I talked before, now you will see how we celebrate our holidays. I would like to invite Susan Levine for the candle lighting. When we have a holiday, we have a special blessing that you are going to find on page 384. Please rise. Be careful with your clothes.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Yom Tov. May these festival lights open our eyes to the joys in life, beauty that delights the eye, freedom to be ourselves, the knowledge of Torah that shapes our moral being, the heritage of celebration that unites us as a people, for the universe.
בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותם בחייכון וביומייכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובשמחן כהרי ואמרו יש מרבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה יתברך וישתבח ביתבהר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי קודשם לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבקתה ונחמתה דמירם בעלמא ואמרו page 394. ברכו את אדוני המבורך. ברוך אדוני המבורך. ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. Please be seated. Page 396. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim bechokma poteach sherim ובתבונה משנה עיתים ומחליף את הזמנים ומסדר את הכוכבים במשמרותיהם ברקיע כרצונו. בורא יום ולילה גולל אור מפני חושך בחושך מפני אור. הוא מעביר יום ומהביא לילה, הוא מבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו. אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, המעריב הרבים. Page 398. אהבת עולם, בית ישראל, עמך עבדה, עמך אהבת, תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת, אותנו לימדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו ושוכבנו וקומנו נשיח בחוקיך, ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי אם ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל, אוהב עמו ישראל. Please rise, page 400, שמע ישראל. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. Please be seated. I would like to invite Eric Savar to share with us the Avta on page 402.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, וחיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
Page 404, אמת ואמונה כל זאת וקיים עלינו, כי הוא אדוני אלוהינו, בין זולתו ואנחנו ישראל עמו. Page 406, מי כמוך. מי כמוך ואלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר וקודש, נורא תהילות תוסף אלה, מלכותך רומנך בוקיים לפני משה ומרים, זה ליהנו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר כיפת אדוני את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל. Page 407. 408. We continue with Ashkiveinu. I listen Josephine's voice. It's so beautiful, and I invited her to sing and to pray with us. We are on page 408. I will help you.
You know my mother? Okay. Because the version I know is like, Hashkiveinu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, V'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim.
Ashkiveinu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, Yamideinu
Shomreinu lechaim. Ros aleinu sukat shlomecha. ותקננו עצה טובה מלפניך. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום, והעמידנו שומרנו לחיים. Thank you. תודה. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I love these kind of surprises, okay? Be careful this side now, okay? Let's continue. We are going to continue. Let me see, because we are not going to pray the prayers, the specific prayers for Shabbat. Today it's not Shabbat. Let me see. We are going to continue with the Tefillah on page 468. 468. Please rise. And this is the moment in our prayer that we are looking symbolically for the east, for Jerusalem. Adonai svatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Eloi avoteinu ve'imoteinu Eloi Avraham, Eloi Yitzchak, Eloi Yaakov, Eloi Sarah, Eloi Rivka, Eloi Rachel ואלוהי לאה. האל הגדול הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, מביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו ואהבה, מלך עוזר ומשיח ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם וצרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם, אדוני מחי הכל, אתה רב להושיע. מוריד עטל, מחלחל חיים וחסד, מחיה הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך ועל גבורות ומדום מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישוע, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיה הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללו סלע. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. Let's continue in silence. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable to you, Adonai, my rock and my redeemer. May the one who makes peace in the high heavens make peace for us, all Israel and all who inhabit the earth, and let us say, Amen. Ose shalom bimromav, uyase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Israel, ve'imru imru amen. Ose shalom bimromav, uyase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Israel, ve'imru imru amen. Yahase shalom, Yahase shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Israel. Yahase shalom, Yahase shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Israel. Ve'imru imru amen. I would like to invite Rabbi Hillel Cohn to open the ark. I would like to invite Mitch to come here also to open the ark with Rabbi Cohn. We are on page 586 for Aleinu Leshaveach. עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת קדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובי מרומים, ואלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום השבות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד. על כן נקווה לך אדוני אלוהינו לראות מהרה ותפארת עוזך, להעביר גילולים מן הארץ ולמכר אותי כרתון, לתקן עולם במלכות שעדי. ונאמר באיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. On page 598, we are going to pronounce the mourners' Kaddish, to pray with the mourners in a way to support them in their pain. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דיברה חירותה וימליך מלכותה, בחי יכון וביום יכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בגלה ובזמן קריב, ואמרו, יש שמי רבה מברך לעולם ולעולמי עולמיה, יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה, לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירם בעלמא, ואמרו, יש למה רבה מן שמיה בחיים עלינו ואל כל ישראל, ואמרו, עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ואל כל ישראל ואל כל יושבי תבל, ואמרו. Please be seated. We started with the prayer, with the candle lighting, with prayer, the prayer of Harbit, a short prayer, and now it's time to start our tikkun. And I would like to reflect about this important word, tikkun. Why we need to repair? Yes, it's like we are in fault. We are starting and we say that we are going to share a night, an evening, that we are going to repair something. Tikkun, something is wrong and we need to repair what is wrong. Do you know what was wrong that we need to repair in the present? Do you have an idea why this night in the Jewish tradition we call Tikkun Leil Shavuot, the night of repair of Shavuot? Why? What we need to repair? Why? Death. Human beings. Ourselves. We are very poetic, yes. This is an interpretation, but it's a reason why we are here. Yes.
Maybe so that we can receive the Torah, we need to be in a good condition.
We need to receive the Torah and we need to be in a good condition. Okay, but what we need to repair? Because you can arrive here in a good condition. You don't need nothing to repair. Why? What we need to repair? What was happening in the past? When was the first, let's say, what historical event gave us to reflect about this holiday? Something important happened in our history that show us this moment in the past, but what we need to repair? Why we need to repair? How was the time? What do you remember about Moses? When Moshe went to Mount Sinai, he spent 40 days in the top. Nobody had any news about Moshe. It was not WhatsApp, not messages, okay, not T-Mobile, not Spectrum, okay, not satellites. Okay, how? And he disappeared, the leader. He was the leader, and he disappeared for 40 days. No news about Moshe. What was happening in the Mount Sinai? Moses was in the top on the golden cow. Okay, it was nice for Moses when he returned to find the people around the golden cow. And then what he did? Speak in the microphone, then the people who are home can listen.
He smashed the tablets, the first tablets.
Yes. And but what he expected? What did Moshe? What he expected? Yes, the leader went to the Mount Sinai to receive the message. The tablets, in fact, were the God message. Moses was carrying these 2 tablets, and what was happening? What Moses expected? To see the golden cow? What he expect? To be well received. The people waiting for his leader. He's coming. Hey, it's coming. Moses is coming. Let's celebrate. He's coming. He's coming with God's words. And instead this, the people were sleeping. Or some of them were around the golden cow. This is the reason that we call this night Tikkun Leil Shavuot. We need to repair what the generation of the desert did. We need to repair instead to be waiting for Moses. We are like that we are waiting for Moses to come to show us the Luchot Abrit, the Torah, and to come to us. And this is the reason that we try to repair. Instead to be in our homes, we are together all around the world, in all the synagogues, Jews are celebrating Shavuot, and the tradition is to stay the entire night. Okay, don't worry. We didn't lock the door, okay? But the tradition is to start now and to finish with the morning prayer and with the Torah reading. I spoke before that Monday is the day that we read Torah, and it's a holiday, okay? Then the community is finished when they pray, and they study the entire night. They eat together, and they sing, and they dance, and we have lectures, the lectures that we are going to have right now with Rabbi Hillel, and this is the reason that we are here, to repair something that the generation of the desert was wrong. And the way to repair it is through the study. We know how to repair, and the good way to repair it is through the elevation, the spiritual elevation. We pray, and now we are going to study. And for this, I would like to introduce Rabbi Hillel Cohn. If you don't know Rabbi Hillel Cohn, it's like a retired rabbi, but he never retired because he's very active. For me, it's a blessing to have Rabbi Cohn here, because I was so welcome for him, and also for Rabbi Susan Singer, and they introduced me to different groups like the Interfaith group and the Riverside Society, and I really appreciate also our friendship. Yes, I arrived just 9 months ago, but I feeling a big respect for you. I had the opportunity to visit Temple Emmanuel in Redlands, and this is part of your life, I can say, in that way. It was the temple where Rabbi Hillel Cohn served and worked during more than 50 years. Yes, in San Bernardino, and nowadays they move, no, not nowadays, a couple of years ago, they moved to Redlands, and they have a very nice synagogue, and we are planning to do things together with Temple Emmanuel. But we have the blessing to have you here, and the idea is to discuss, to have another vision from the 10 Commandments. The floor is yours. Thank you for coming.
Let me just, can you move that up?
Yes. Let me know where.
As close as you can.
Okay. Think that here it's okay.
Actually, I could probably do without the microphone. Can you hear me without the microphone? Oh, with the, that's right, on Zoom. On Zoom, that's fine. That's good. Okay. Well, I'm delighted to be here, and thank you, Rabbi Guershon, for inviting me, and we have begun what I hope will be a long and wonderful friendship between our two communities, and especially between colleagues. And I hope all of you got a copy of the pamphlet that I've prepared, and I'll be talking about that in just a few moments. Well, you know, it is on Shavuot, which is called the Feast of Weeks, because it comes at the end of the 7-week period. Christians refer to it most often as the Pentecost, the 50-day period. But it's on Shavuot that Jews offer appreciation for the Torah, and more specifically for the Decalogue, or what we have come to know certainly as the 10 Commandments. Now, you know, there was a time when the text of the 10 Commandments found twice in the Torah, or the Pentateuch, in the book of Exodus, and then again in the book of Deuteronomy. There was a time when the 10 Commandments were recited at almost every Jewish service. But eventually, perhaps reacting to the fact that people began to think that, well, there are only 10 commandments, and they neglected the other 603 of the 613 commandments in the Torah. There was a time when the 10 commandments were removed from the regular daily and weekly services. As a matter of fact, you find in Mishkan Tefillah, in the Reformed Prayer Book, and in Conservative, that you won't find the text of the Ten Commandments. You'll find them in the copies of the Torah. Well, I'm honored to have been invited to join you on this eve of Shavuot and to join with Rabbi Guershon to talk about those 10 commandments. And one point I want to make is that all 10 of them are commandments, not suggestions. I once read an account by a Christian minister of how one Sunday afternoon, a mother asked her teenage son how the youth group meeting at their church went. And the teen told his mother, well, you know, the meeting was great, Mom. Our youth minister talked to us about the 10 Commandments. Well, what did you think about them, his mom asked. Well, her son said, there are 10 of them. Some are easy, some are really hard. What I don't understand is, did God expect these to really be commandments, or were they just suggestions? If they're suggestions, well, then I can choose the ones I want to follow, and I can forget about the others. Well, friends, in fact, there are two ways of looking at how they came to be. The traditionalist view, as conveyed in that classic Cecil B. DeMille film, is that Moses, the leader of the ancient Israelite community, led the people out of Egypt, and during their sojourn in the wilderness, Moses ascended the top of Mount Sinai, and there God revealed to him 10 laws which were chiseled out on 2 tablets. And Moses came down the mountain, ready to share with the people the rules of living that God had imparted to him. And when he came down, as Rabbi Guershon just shared with us, he could not help but see that the throngs of people were gathered around a golden calf, a pure act of idolatry. And Moses was angry at this demonstration of faithlessness, and so he smashed the tablets, but soon thereafter, he received a second set from God, brought them down to the people, and before they even heard what those 10 rules were, they proclaimed, all that the Lord has spoken, we will do and we will hear. And only then did Moses tell them that they had just obligated themselves and their descendants to a particular way of living. And that traditional account is the account of what we call divine revelation. An alternative way of looking at how the commandments were formulated and divinely revealed is that as the people recognized that they were no longer subservient to the Egyptians, and that they were now on their way to constructing a society on their own land, a land that had been promised to them, the promised land, and they would then need rules to govern their lives. Anarchy, where each person did what he or she wanted without regard for others, would not just work. And so the elders gathered together in what was really akin to a at the doorway to their constitutional hall in societies allowed and what they prohibited. And they ultimately came up with a code of conduct that included what one might or what one might not. These were the most significant laws they could come up with. They attributed them to the source of wisdom that they referred to as God. And then the finished product of that constitutional convention was chiseled onto stone. Their leader assembled all the people and read to them these laws, and he asked them to approve them by saying, Na'aseh v'nishma, all. Remember that word all, not some, but all that God has spoken, we will do and we will hear. So whatever vision you prefer, the end results are really the same. A set of laws to govern human beings in both their individual lives as well as their collective lives. The Ten Commandments are the basic set of rules to govern people. And some have divided them into two groups: laws to govern our relationship with God and laws to govern our relationship with one another. But the key thing is, they're not suggestions. They're laws. They're commandments. A number of years ago, I began to collect versions of the Ten Commandments composed for various groups. And while they're not intended to replace the original Ten Commandments, they are rules for a particular situation or a particular group. And so in my files, I have numerous sets of commandments. Among them are the 10 Commandments of human relations, 10 Commandments for parents, 10 Commandments for young people and their elders. There are the 10 Commandments of rock and roll, 10 Commandments for sane living, 10 Commandments for HMOs, even 10 Commandments for the car collector. They're all interesting. They're not, however, intended to be replacements. While you have the text of the Ten Commandments in the pamphlet that I've put together, I want to share but one contemporary set of commandments that makes great sense to me. In this pamphlet, by the way, you'll find, first of all, let me just take you through it, you'll find on page 3 the translation that we find in the traditional English translation published by the Jewish Publication Society in 1985, the translation from Exodus chapter 20. And both in the bold print as well as that which follows, in the bold you'll find the abbreviation perhaps, and then you'll find the full text following that. So, for example, on page 3, the fourth commandment, remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. On depictions of the Ten Commandments, you'll find Zachor et, remember the, and then we have to fill in the rest. But the commandment as put in the actual Torah text says, 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath of the Lord your God. You shall not do any work, you, your son or daughter, your male or female slave, your cattle or the stranger within your settlements. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth and sea, and all that is in them, and he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. That, by the way, presented a problem in the post-biblical world for the rabbis, because people said, well, the commandment says you shall do no manner of work, and they had to specify what constituted work and what didn't. They came up with 39 categories of activity that you couldn't do on the Sabbath day. But the text in the Torah doesn't say that. It leaves that open. On pages 5 and 6, I've shown you what it looks like actually in the Torah script. And then on page 7 and 8, the text with the vowels and the punctuation. The second set of translations, in a wonderful translation by Everett Fox, and he uses the word YHWH, Yahweh for God, and they're very similar, but he says, for example, I am Yahweh your God who brought you out from the land of Egypt from a house of serfs. Well, it's a good translation. And then you'll find on page 11, one that I've included, a modern interpretation, and I'll get into that in just a moment. And then you'll find page 14 and 15. Well, I think that there's one particular set of commandments that I think could very well be thought of as the Jewish Ten Commandments, even though they came out of the humanist movement, the humanist Ten Commandments, and you'll find those on page 14. And what does it say? Number 1, thou shalt strive to promote the greater good of humanity before all selfish desires. 2, thou shalt be curious, for asking questions is the only way to find answers. 3, harm to your fellow human is harm to humanity. Therefore, thou shalt not kill, rape, rob, or otherwise victimize anyone. 4th, thou shalt treat all humans as equals, regardless of race, gender, age, creed, identity, orientation, physical ability, or status. 5, thou shalt use reason as your guide. Science, knowledge, observation, and rational analysis are the best ways to determine any course of action. 6, thou shalt not force your beliefs onto others, nor insist that yours be the only and correct way to live happily. 7, if thou dost govern, thou shalt govern with reason, not with superstition. Religion should have no place in any government which represents all people and beliefs. Number 8, thou shalt act for the betterment of your fellow humans and be, whenever possible, altruistic in your deeds. Number 9, thou shalt be good to the earth and its bounties, for without it, humankind is lost. And 10, thou shalt impart the knowledge and wisdom gained in your lifetime to the next generation, so that with each passing century, humanity will grow wiser and more human. I'm not going to go into the modern interpretation of the commandments that you find from pages 11 through 13, but let me just pick a couple of them. The very first, the commandment is, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. A modern interpretation, all your acts in life shall be based on loyalty to God. God is opposed to all subjugation of humans, to all suffering, and to all injustice. God calls on you to work together with all others toward the eventual realization of a world of peace, freedom, and brotherly love. Or look at the bottom of page 11, honor your father and your mother. In interpretation, it was your parents who gave you birth, tended you, and guided you to understanding. Have respect for them, love for them, and attachment to them, for this will add joy to your days and fullness to your years. You shall direct your life with the desires of your parents in mind. Give honor to their words and respect to the heritage and tradition that you received from your ancestors. And one more, the 8th commandment, you shall not steal. This is a very, very, I think, fine interpretation. You shall not seek to gain that which is not rightfully yours, neither shall you deprive your neighbor of that which is rightfully his or hers, either by your power over him or her, or by virtue of his or her ignorance. You shall not deprive your employee of the full wage which should be his or hers, neither shall you employ unfair means of competition against your neighbor, neither shall you in buying or selling take advantage of your neighbor's weakness or your neighbor's ignorance. I hope you'll take time when you go home to read through these other interpretations. these ought to be seen as non-negotiable commandments, not as mere suggestions. Shavuot, which begins tonight, reminds us of the commandments. It reminds us that they are not suggestions. So let me wish you a Chag Sameach. May our celebration and observance of this festival be joyous, and may it leave us even more committed to living our lives by the Ten Commandments. Thank you. Now we're going to hear real words of wisdom. What I will do, thank you. What I will do is, I don't know how many people are here. There are two commandments for senior citizens. I don't think all of you fall into that category, but I'm going to just take a moment. One is a serious one. Let me just read it real quickly, and I'll pass these out. Number one, let's face it, we're getting old or are already old. Let's face its consequences and our limitations. Two, focus on enjoying people, not in indulging or accumulating material things. Three, plan on spend what you have saved. You deserve to enjoy it and the few healthy years. Travel if you can afford it. Don't leave anything for your children or loved ones to quarrel about. Instead of helping them, you can even cause more trouble when you're gone. There are the rest of them. I'm going to pass these out, but I'm going to read the 10 other commandments for senior citizens. Number one, thou shalt demand a discount on everything thou buyest. Number two, thou shalt drive a gas guzzler. Number three, thou shalt get up several times a night to go to the bathroom. 4, thou shalt repeat things thou hast said. 5, thou shalt pull out in front of faster moving vehicles and drive as slow as you want. 6, thou shalt mistrust anyone under the age of 50. 7, thou shalt always drive with thy turn signal on. 8, thou shalt go to bed every night by 9 o'clock. 9, thou shalt gripe about politics, health care, and taxes. And 10, thou shalt do and say anything thou darn well please.
Thank you very much, and Yesher Koach, Rabbi Hillel Cohn. It's a pleasure to study and to learn from you. And let's sing a specific verse of the Torah that it's related to this holiday of Shavuot. I would like to invite you to open your Sidurim on page 654. 654. This is a verse of book of Exodus, chapter 3, verse 8, and it's very simple. Eretz zabat halav udvash, a land flowing with milk and honey. And this is a verse that we sing and we remember every year when we commemorate Shavuot. Okay, just if you know, sing with me. If you don't know, sing with me anyway. Eretz zavat halav, halav udevash. 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 Eretz zavat halav. Halav udevash, eretz zavat halav. Halav udevash, eretz zavat halav. Halav udevash. I would like to start where Rabbi Hillel Cohn mentioned before. If we study the Talmud, Masechet Tamid, 32a, in the time of the Holy Temple of Jerusalem, it was very common to pronounce the 10 Commandments with the Shema. Shema is one of the main prayers. In the time that our leaders, our priests, used to pray Shema Israel, they used to add the 10 Commandments, exactly with the Shema Israel. And then we need to remember what Rabbi Hillel Cohn spoke, that the other people can suggest that we have just 10 commandments, and then our leaders change and they didn't include anymore the 10 commandments in the prayer, or they didn't add any more with the Shema. When I talking about the commandments, Rabbi Hillel, it's something that it's very heavy for us. Yes, when we are talking about 613 commandments, too much. Why? 10, is it not enough then? But why 613 commandments? And there are many ways to divide the commandments. Some of them we heard from Rabbi Hillel, but there are also a way to divide the commandments, the things that we need to do, that it's mandatory, and the things that we don't need to do. It's a clear division. And this division is very easy to remember. What we need to do, the commandments that we call positive commandments, they are like the days of the year, 365. 365 commandments with what we don't need to do, okay? What is forbidden to do? 365 commandments. And what we, need to keep and we need to do, 248 commandments. 365 like the days of the year, 248 like the parts of the body, that the body is divided. I don't know if we have here a doctor in our auditorium, but 248 parts that the body is divided. We have more things that we don't need to do than the things that we need to keep and do. And sometimes it's really difficult to understand. But if you are a mother or if you are a father, if you have your grandsons, granddaughters, it's very clear that we spend a lot of time saying to them, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that, the entire time, okay? We are trying to say no to this, not to that, don't cross the street alone, okay? Don't touch the electricity, don't open this, don't do that, okay? Don't go out home alone, don't. Sometimes when we think about something that it's negative, or we are thinking that it's bad, but it's not bad. It's a way to protect. And the same way, when God gave us the commandments, we need to understand that it's a fence. We can understand the commandments like a fence. The Torah, it's a fence to the people of Israel. What we can do, what is forbidden, what is allowed, but it's a way to protect us. This is till where you can go. Okay, if I coming here to the ramp, I know that I have here, okay, my space. I can walk from here to here. But if I'm going to go down this way, will be difficult and dangerous. If you are keeping the mitzvot, but you are out the fence, it will be very dangerous. You can fall, and it can be really very dangerous. Then the commandments, we can interpret the commandments like a fence to the people of Israel, what we need to do, what it's allowed, what it's not allowed, but we need to study and we need to practice. If we don't study the commandments, we can't understand the commandments. And a way to remember, we need to read and we need to practice. It's not just a book. If this book is this book that we have here, that we call Torah, if we consider this book holy, of course that it's holy, but if we don't touch, if we don't use, it's like a piece in a museum. I come in here, I open the ark, and I show the Torah, and it's like we are in a museum, and you are in front of a famous painting, and you say, wow, and you just look from outside, but you need to touch, you need to open, you need to read, and you need to practice. This is the Torah. This is the way that we understand. Lo b'shamayim. When we are talking about Torah, the Torah, it's not in the sky, it's here. God gave us the Torah to understand, to practice, and we call the Torah, what is Torah? Torah, it's coming also from the Hebrew word or, that it's light. Or chaim, it's a way of life. This is Torah. It's a way of life. When we study Torah, it's like we are in front of a mirror, and when you are in front of a mirror, you can see how you are, what you need to correct, what you need to improve, and this is really very, very important. Another way to study the Torah and the Ten Commandments in particular is when we study Parashat Kedoshim in the book of Leviticus, because it's another interpretation of the Ten Commandments. Perhaps they are in another order, and we need to remember that we have the commandments in the first time that we read the commandments, they are in the Exodus book, and then the Ten Commandments are coming back in the book of Deuteronomium. And why? Why twice? We are the same people who are reading and studying the commandments. Why we need twice the commandments? It's for the scribe, it's not nice to write twice the same words. For us, perhaps with one time it's enough, but they are not equal. They are not similar. One version to the second version, there are some particularities, some specific change, and when we find some change in the commandments, the way that I read, it's the evolution of the religion. We are the same people. It was appropriate in the book of Exodus to say to the people in this order, but when we change one word, perhaps the meaning changed completely. One of the meanings that change, it's about Shabbat, the fourth commandment. In the first version, it's remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. And in Hebrew we say Zachor, remember, but we need to, and the second version, it's Shamor. We need to take care. When you take care, you have more responsibility. And why God changed specifically that word? Because the people forgot to celebrate Shabbat or to keep Shabbat. And then one thing is, I say to you, please remember my watch, okay? Remember my watch. Other thing, it's, I say, take care for my watch. Okay, it's different. Now he have a responsibility. He has a responsibility. Thank you. You are. And this is very important. It's just one word, but Shabbat is central in our lives. And like Ahadam said, who take care for who? If Shabbat take care for the people, to care for the people of Israel, or the people of Israel to care for the Shabbat? Yes, we can ask this question, but Shabbat, the seventh day, is essential in the Jewish culture because everything is built around Shabbat. We organize our life and our calendar around Shabbat. Everything is built, and this is the day that we rest, and we can see better the creation, and also we can think about our lives. This is one of the words that is different, and the other word is in the last commandment, in the 10th commandment. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not, it's a good pronunciation, covet, from kabot, yes, not from kabot, envy. Okay, this is more appropriate, I like it. This is which is the change here. It's just the order. If you have here on page 4, you shall not covet your neighbor's house, you shall not covet your neighbor's wife. In the second version, God changed and put first the wife and second the house. And here it's something strong. This is something not very friendly for our female members that shows clearly that the wife, the woman, was like a property of the husband, because in the first version was most important the house than the wife. And then God changed, and in the second version, wife became most important than the house. It's just order, but it's more that the order of the words. And this is also very important to see. Sometimes many people say, okay, Jewish tradition, Jewish religion, it's always the same. No, in these examples, we can see the evolution. We can see that if God changed this, it's because we have some reason. And try to imagine the problems between the couples in the desert without a lot of privacy. They staying during 40 years in the desert. The first version they received, and they went to the desert recently. They went to the desert, and the second version they received after many years in the desert. The situation changed. The privacy between husband and wife changed, and this is the reason also why God decided to change. But let's go to if it's possible, if you can, do we have there some Torah? Perhaps we have here or not. If we have some, it will be important. If it's possible, if not, don't worry. If not, don't worry. It's important to read because God said or pronounced in other order the 10 Commandments. And we will see also a big change in the 5th commandments. In the book of Exodus was written, honor your father and your mother. And now in Leviticus, we are going to read that honor your mother and your father. The text changed, the order. And for me, Rabbi Hillel, as a Reformed rabbi, it's very important to see that the mother, it's at the beginning to show what we always say, that we are equal in our faith and inside the community. And this is very important to understand that perhaps a change of order, it's more than a change of order. It shows like an evolution of the religion. Thank you very much. We have here the Humashim, the Torah. Open, please, on page 894. $894. $894. A volunteer to read? Who would like to read? Would you like to read? Yeah, I can read. Okay. Come here. Come to the bima. Okay. We read recently the Ten Commandments. And now we are going to read, for many rabbis, it's a different version of the Ten Commandments, but it's another way to say the same.
You want verse 1 through? Yes. Okay. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the whole Israelite community and say to them, you shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. You shall each revere his mother and his father, and keep my Sabbaths. I, the Lord, am your God. Do not turn to idols or make molten gods for yourselves. I, the Lord, am your God. When you sacrifice an offering of well-being to the Lord, sacrifice it so that it may be accepted on your behalf. It shall be eaten on the day you sacrifice it, or on the day following. But what is left by the third day must be consumed in fire. If it should be eaten on the third day, it is an offensive thing, it will not be acceptable. And he who eats of it shall bear his guilt, for he has profaned what is sacred to the Lord. That person shall be cut off from his kin. When you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not reap all the way to the edges of your field, or gather the gleanings of your harvest. You shall not pick your vineyard bare, or gather the fallen fruit of your vineyard. You shall leave them for the poor and the stranger. I am the Lord your God. You shall not steal. You shall not deal deceitfully or falsely with one another. You shall not swear falsely by my name, profaning the name of your God. I am the Lord. You shall not defraud your neighbor. You shall not commit robbery. The wages of a laborer shall not remain with you until morning. You shall not insult the deaf or place a stumbling block before the blind. You shall fear your God. I am the Lord. You shall not render an unfair decision. Do not favor the poor or show deference to the rich. Judge your neighbor fairly. Do not deal basely with your fellows. Do not profit by the blood of your neighbor. I am the Lord. You shall not hate your kinsman in your heart. Reprove your neighbor, but incur no guilt because of him. You shall not take vengeance or bear a grudge against your kinsfolk. Love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord. You shall observe my laws. You shall not let your cattle mate with a different kind. You shall not sow your field with two kinds of seed. You shall not put on cloth from a mixture of two kinds of material. If a man has carnal relations with a woman who is a slave and has been designated for another man, but has not been redeemed or given her freedom, there shall be an indemnity. They shall not, however, be put to death, since she has not been freed. But he must bring to the entrance of the tent of meeting as his guilt offering to the Lord a ram of guilt offering. With the ram of guilt offering, the priest shall make expiation for him before the Lord for the sin that he committed, and the sin that he committed will be forgiven him. When you enter the land and plant any tree for food, you shall regard its fruit as forbidden. 3 years it shall be forbidden for you, not to be eaten. In the 4th year, all its fruit shall be set aside for jubilation before the Lord. And only in the 5th year may you use its fruit, that its yield to you may be increased. I am the Lord your God. You shall not eat anything with its blood. You shall not practice divination or soothsaying. You shall not round off the side growth on your head, or destroy the side growth of your beard. This is also another reason people let their payas grow, as the question we had earlier. You shall not make gashes in your flesh for the dead, or incise any marks on yourselves. I am the Lord. Do not degrade your daughter and make her a harlot, lest the land fall into harlotry and the land be filled with depravity. You shall keep my Sabbaths and venerate my sanctuary. I am the Lord. Do not turn to ghosts, and do not inquire of familiar spirits, to be defiled by them. I, the Lord, am your God. You shall rise before the aged and show deference to the old. You shall fear your God. I am the Lord. When a stranger resides with you in your land, you shall not wrong him. The stranger who resides with you shall be to you as one of your citizens. You shall love him as yourself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord. I, the Lord, am your God. You shall not falsify measures of length, weight, or capacity. You shall have an honest balance, honest weights, an honest ephah, and an honest hin. I, the Lord, am your God, who freed you from the land of Egypt. You shall faithfully observe all my laws and all my rules. I am the Lord.
Thank you very much, Eric. Thank you very much. You see, this Parashat Kedoshim, this part of Leviticus 19, it's a different way to understand, or perhaps to repeat the commandments in a different way for the new generation that was walking in the desert with Moses. In the end of Rabbi Hillel, we laugh a little bit about modern interpretations from the Ten Commandments, and with this I would like to finish. We need to see that in the different generations we need to find the language to touch the people. And perhaps the Ten Commandments that the people of Exodus receive, perhaps it was not enough for the generation later on, and then God through Moses found another way to repeat and to explain the Ten Commandments. I don't know if for our generation it's enough the way that we read the commandments, but the most important thing is to be together, to reflect, and to know that there are many different ways to read and to understand the Ten Commandments, but it's not a suggestion, it's a commandment. Yes, you use another word. It's not a, it was not a suggestion. Yes, it's not a suggestion. It's mandatory. And the most important thing is to find the appropriate language to understand, but to practice with joy. Yes, the most important thing is to practice with joy. And one important thing, and this is the reason that I'm a Reformed Jew, when I practice a commandment, I need to understand first why I practice the commandment. It's from God, okay, I believe and I agree. But if we can understand, if we can study, if we can turn this something that we can practice with joy, will be very useful for us and for our entire people. Yes, Rabbi.
Hopefully we'll have time for questions. I don't want to make just a couple of comments on what you just told us. You have the versions in Book of Exodus and Deuteronomy, and then what we read from the Book of Leviticus. That is probably one of the best examples of what biblical scholars of the 18th, 19th century, which was called the documentary hypothesis, but you had different groups writing or setting down the Torah that reflected their point of view. So in the book of Leviticus, you have a number of things that really reflect the point of view of the priestly authors. In the book of Deuteronomy, which was intended to be a replacement for Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers, to be the new Deuteronomy, the new set of laws, so it's a little bit different. And by the way, you mentioned in the Shabbat liturgy, so in Lachadodi, what do we say? Shamor v'zachor. We can observe both of the commandments kind of parallel to one another. The other thing I wanted to mention is perhaps one of the best known rabbinic legends, probably taught to children when they're quite young in religious schools. And that is, the story is told that when God was going to reveal the commandments, he goes first of all to the Moabites and then to these people and those people, and every one of them says, now tell us what it is, and we'll let you know if we want to accept them. Goes to one group and it says, thou shalt not kill. Wait a minute. What do you mean thou shalt not kill? We prosper when we kill people. There's nothing wrong. Another group, read the commandments to us, God, and God comes to, thou shalt not commit adultery. Wait a minute. What's wrong with adultery? I happen to like having 5 wives or 4 women or whatever. And he goes to the Hebrews finally, and they say, we're not going to ask you to tell us right now what the commandments are. We'll do them. Now tell us what they are. Na'aseh. We will do it, v'nishma, and then we will listen to the commandments. And that really says something about kind of the faith of our ancestors. The last thing I want to say is because Rabbi Guershon mentioned, the 613 commandments. We often forget one of the great Jewish thinkers of the 20th century was a Canadian Rabbi, Emil Fackenheim. And Emil Fackenheim said there is a 614th commandment now. And what is the 614th commandment? Thou shalt not give Hitler a posthumous victory. That you need to continue to survive as a people, and as a people that really cares about the way they live and the way that humanity structures itself. So I just wanted to share that with you. I wonder, do we have time for 1 or 2 questions or comments or whatever? Feel free to ask. There's nothing wrong with a question. We may not have an answer, but that's all right. Yes.
The 10 Commandments came from God, but the 603 commandments, did they all come at once from some other source, or one source?
I hope that maybe I didn't lead you to understand. I happen to really believe that they're the product of this ongoing constitutional convention figure out the best way to construct a society, that's the way we're going to live. And we will attribute that to our better selves, thinking about things not just for our own welfare, but for the welfare of all, what's for the good of humanity, and therefore we'll attribute it. That's godly, or we attribute it.
Thank you, Mitch. We need to remember that the division and who helped us to understand better the commandments was Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon. Maimonides, in his book Mishneh Torah, he divided the commandments in these two groups that I mentioned before. It was a hard work from Maimonides, from Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon.
By the way, just to get to your question, but I think, and I resonate to what you said earlier, why are there 365 negative commandments and 248 positive commandments? 248, by the way, was linked to the number of limbs there are in the human body. Whether that's entirely proved by medical science or not doesn't matter. But it is a lot more sensible in a society to have laws that tell you what you can't do than what you can do. There's laws that tell you that when you're driving down Central Avenue when the school is in session, you can go 25 miles an hour. You cannot, the driving laws are negatives. You cannot do this. It does not say you have to, right? And that's an important thing. That's human behavior. Human behavior is what you can't do and then what you can. So more negatives than positives. But there was a question.
Wendy. Yes.
This is really more of a comment than a question, but it doesn't actually say the words, the Ten Commandments, in the Torah. When they made the King James Version of the Bible, they put it as a heading. And everyone else just kind of adopted that. But one thing I think is interesting. Right, and also there's a lot of politicians these days that want to put up the Ten Commandments in various places, not understanding that they're translated differently in different faiths. And I read an article recently about the fires in Pasadena and how the Jews aren't concerned with saving the Ten Commandments, we're concerned with saving our Torah, which is a very different thing.
While you're talking about it, we're talking about the Ten Commandments, and I did mention, how many of you remember seeing the Cecil B. DeMille movie, of the Ten Commandments? That really was people ought to really see that again. I mean, it's a pretty dramatic kind of a thing. I'll just add a footnote. Part of that includes the sounding of the ram's horn when the commandments are given. And I can tell you that that movie was filmed in Los Angeles. I was the one invited to be the chauffeur blower in the movie, The Ten Commandments, and I had to turn it down because I was 16 years old at the time. I was going to Pennsylvania for a B'nai B'rith Youth Organization national convention, and it also would have required me to join the Extra Guild, the Actors Guild, 3 or 4 and so I did not, but I was invited to do that. So, blow the shofar in the Ten Commandments.
Now we are in front of a famous rabbi, yes, who blew a shofar for the movie. Yes.
Is there a modern interpretation of the Garden of Eden that we were taught about in our Sunday school, and that it was the Eve that made the transgression? Is there an interpretation of that it could be looked at?
I'm thinking that this is an issue for another lecture.
That's an ongoing process of interpreting and taking a look at the biblical language and interpreting it for our times. That was called Midrash, the rabbinic kind of commentaries, but it's expanded. There's a constantly recurring Midrash, or exploration of the meaning. And some of it's informed by new knowledge that we have in our world today. Some of it isn't.
Okay, we are going to the last question because we have some wine and cheese that we didn't share before because one specific reason we receive Muslim brothers and sisters and it's not allowed alcohol for them, and then we decided to leave the wine to the end and with some cheesecake to celebrate. And remember that tomorrow morning, 9:30, we will have a Shacharit service and we are going to pronounce Kaddish for Iskor. Okay, you are invited to attend the service tomorrow, 9:30. Please, your last question.
Thank you. Rabbi, thank you for your time today. I really appreciated and learned more than I imagined. Of the 10 commandments in Exodus 20, which one do you identify with the most and why?
I think generally Exodus chapter 20 is what normally occurs. So when people are directed to the 10 Commandments, they're directed to Exodus 20. When it occurs again in the summertime, when we come to the parasha where you have the 10 Commandments again, there's not a great deal of difficulty, but Exodus 20 is the one that is normally gone. Yeah. As a matter of fact, if you look at the front here, it says the abbreviation of the fourth commandment is, on most 10 commandment plaques, is Zachor, which comes from Exodus, rather than Shamor, which comes from Deuteronomy. That's a difficult, because it changes from one situation to another. But I would say that would be one for you to answer as well. But I would say the one that matters the most to me is thou shalt not kill, murder. But it would change. There are many ways of interpreting. There's something we call situation ethics. What are situations? And I'm going to give you this, which is perhaps open for a lot of discussion. But the commandment makes sense, thou shalt not commit adultery. But let me give you the example of a colleague of mine who died a number of years ago, Rabbi Roland Gittleson, whose wife had severe dementia and she was hospitalized. And he engaged in a relationship with a woman in his congregation. And that was something that came up for a great deal of discussion. Was he violating one of the 10 Commandments? Yes, he was. But a situation ethics would say that made sense, that for him to be deprived of a relationship, he opted not to divorce his wife, but not to limit himself to another relationship. That's just an example of looking at the commandments in a new light. Yeah.
I can tell you that all the commandments are important. It's difficult to say if one is more important than the other. We can divide and we can say in the dimension of the spirituality, the commandment of Shabbat is very important. But for me, it's really very important, honor your father and your mother. Because if you don't, you can keep the Shabbat, but it's not enough. It's not enough to follow the commandments and to take care for the spirituality. It's not good to be just a good Jew observing Shabbat and you forget to respect your father and your mother. Okay, then it's very important.
I like the interpretation on page 13 of the 9th commandment, that you shall not bear false witness. You shall have scrupulous regard for truth and shall speak after it at all times. But the other thing I wanted to say, and I know we have to conclude, but that there is a great deal of discussion these days as to whether in public schools they ought to put a version of the 10 Commandments. Then the question is, whose version? Because you understand that in the Christian community, the commandments are almost the same, but the first commandment is not their commandment. the one that says, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. And that is not considered to be the first commandment by Christians. They take the second commandment, divide it into two. So whose version are you going to put on there? And the last thing I would say is, if you want to know if it's a Jewish symbol, if any of you were in the military, I was not, but I was a volunteer chaplain at Air Force Base and so on in San Bernardino. The Jewish chaplain's insignia is the Ten Commandments. It's a little thing, blue with the, and for years and years, what it had, strangely enough, were the numbers 1 through 10 as the Roman numerals. Can you imagine the Hebrew text being the Roman numeral? And then they change it. Now they have Hebrew on the chaplain's insignia. But that was interesting because we lived in a Christian nation.
Sandy, and then I go there.
I just want to, is this on? Yes. I just want to add something to the seniors. Thou shalt not keep the seniors up past their bedtimes. What?
Okay, I said before the last question, but okay, let's go. Last question or opinions.
Last. This isn't a question, but just what resonated with me tonight in the Torah reading that Eric did was the thing about strangers, because it feels so relevant to right now, the way things are happening with immigration, and just that feeling that we've all been strangers in the land, including that most of us are transplants to this place, and yet some have a right to be here and some are treated well and some aren't. And that just sounded so loud in my ear tonight.
Rachel?
So I know over time society and we have evolved as people, but in these 10 Commandments, all the narratives are mostly towards like males. It's a male narrative. So I was just wondering, at that time, what was expected of women? Because I looked past the 10 Commandments and I saw that women were put to death and they were stoned for certain things, but they were not included in like the first-hand narrative, and none of this was towards them. So like, doesn't that kind of go against a lot of the laws and whatnot, like modern day, like what was expected of them to do, and what was, if they were put to death for something they had no clue because they weren't told about it, how does that translate to like the times then? I don't know if that makes sense, but.
But you saw that in Leviticus, the order is different. You talk, if I understood right, that you mentioned that you don't feel that it's too much, that the commandment includes female. Yes, this is your question, your commentary. Well,
translations. There's one done by some Paulist priest. There's one by a home in which they eliminate any, and as the Mishkan Tefillah tries to eliminate and make the language egalitarian. But you have to understand that not just during the time of the Bible, not just time of the Torah and the rest of the Bible, the Talmud, up till modern times, including in our own country, the Declaration of Independence, and the Constitution and laws, we were not an egalitarian society. And we're just beginning to understand, you know, the need to be egalitarian, but it's a long time coming. So all of that language does make sense if you understand that that was not the kind of society that produced the writings that we call scriptural writings.
We would like to thank Rabbi Hillel Cohn once again. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for coming. And I would like to finish and to give you, my present a smile. At the beginning, when God went from one people to the other, he offered just one tablet, not two. He offered just one tablet. And when he arrived to the people of Israel and offered just one tablet, the people of Israel asked, how much is it? And God said, It's for free. Okay, give me 2. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening. And thank you for joining us online. We are invited to go to the social hall. Thank you.